Hello, this is Dr. Heather Lee, and this is Classroom Management Part 3 for EDS 318. This is a continuing discussion about classroom management, and specifically the first key of classroom management, which is creating a positive environment and atmosphere for our students. And we've talked about that begins with relationships, but it also involves the environment, the physical environment, and the classroom that we set up. And so the next thing we're going to talk about are environmental cues. These are things that you can specifically put up in your classroom to cue or remind your students about certain things along the way. For example, you really need to be organized as a teacher. Paper will overcome you very, very quickly. And so you need to have some ways that you are organized. And one thing you can do is help your students with that organization, possibly by color coding things. For example, each period that you have, maybe you have five class periods you're responsible for, and each of them has a different color assigned to it. So they know that they always turn their work into a certain bin color or into a certain file. Other things you can do with color or similar things like that to help your students stay organized and to help you stay organized. That's a cue. Another example of a cue are when you post certain instructions or guidelines, things that you frequently will refer to throughout the year and your students can have at the ready so that there's really no excuse for not doing it. They always know and it's accessible to them. You can have assignments up and sample assignments, a daily schedule or an agenda of what the class will be like. Overall, you want to minimize distractions in your classroom. There should be things up on the wall. It should be inviting, but there shouldn't be so much, particularly of messes and disorganization, that it's a distraction and it doesn't feel like you really care about the classroom environment. So if you minimize those things, you'll also minimize your students' distractions. A final area about this classroom environment is creating a positive atmosphere for your students. And remember at the beginning we talked about the fact that you are the one who determines the weather in your classroom, the atmosphere, the environment. It's very, very important that you realize that. And there are many things you can do to either help create a positive atmosphere or the opposite, things that create a less than positive atmosphere. One thing to keep in mind is that you want to admonish or correct behavior, but not people. You don't want to say that Johnny is a bad student, or Sarah is a bad student, but you want to say that talking is an issue that Johnny is dealing with, or consistency in turning in homework is something that Sarah needs to work on. But so you focus on the behavior, not the person, and making them feel bad about who they are, because we all have areas where we need to grow. Being very careful not to discriminate. And this is not just racial discrimination, but you'd be amazed how easy it is for us to treat people differently based on our background, experience, preconceived notions, what we may have heard from other teachers. So we need to be careful to be fair with our students and to treat them equally, to have the same high expectations of them. Physical appearance and comfort of your classroom, those create a positive atmosphere. We've talked about that before. You want to try to use as much positive language as you can. Things that your students should do, what they should be doing right now. They should be focusing on the group assignment you've given them and talking about questions 1 through 3. Not, don't do this. Don't talk about the game tonight. Don't talk about, don't call out. But instead, try to focus on the positive as much as you can. I like this one. This is kind of a summary about the kind of person that you can be to have a positive atmosphere. It says, be an interesting person and an optimistic and enthusiastic teacher, especially about your content area. If you are a PE teacher, you should really like physical education and be excited about it. If you're a history teacher, be excited about history and be an interesting person yourself. Encouraging high but realistic goals helps to set a positive tone. And then also the idea of collaborative learning. You want your students to develop skills and to have practice in your class of working with other students in a positive way and realizing that we need each other, that we need to help each other, and that's the kind of work environment that they are going to be expected to be successful in. Some more things that you can do to create a positive atmosphere are to involve them. Especially if you are a high school teacher, you will be much more successful if you can find ways to have your students own and take responsibility for their own learning. That's the kind of thinkers and learners that we want to prepare them to be for life. So specifically think about how you will involve them. You want learning to be fun whenever you can. It doesn't always have to be a game, but it should be enjoyable. And I think learning is enjoyable just because it is. It feels good to learn. But sometimes we do have to apply the hard work. So when we can find a way to make it enjoyable and fun and social, that's a very good thing. We want to recognize the good, recognize individuals for the success that they have. Sending home positive and understandable messages. It sounds silly to say to send home an understandable message, but you'd be really surprised how something might make sense to you when you wrote it and you just had a quick minute to write it, but really a parent reads it and they think, what? I'm not sure what the teacher is trying to say. And so make sure, maybe have someone else read a note, especially if you're not very good at communicating and writing or you need to grow in that area. So make sure it's very clear and understandable in sending home positive notes or a positive phone call. Sometimes you can even leave a positive phone message during the day when you know no one's at home, but you just leave a great message on the answering machine praising the parent and the student for the great job that they did on something specific. And then if you are using varied, appropriate, and motivating learning activities, that's going to create a positive atmosphere as well. Those are things that we have worked on in this class. Another thing you want to think of is what you're going to put up in your classroom. We talked about cues, and so those are certainly things that can go up. But here are some more things that you might display in your classroom. You might have the classroom rules and procedures displayed. I think that's an excellent idea. The most important curriculum standards with their rubrics. Expected mechanics for writing. Even if you're not a writing teacher, writing and literacy should be a part of every single subject area. So you need to know what's expected and be clear with your students about that. Pictures, current students, past students, procedures and deadlines for homework, examples of great work, student-centered artwork, making everyone feel that they belong and that is their classroom. And just one final note about creating this positive atmosphere. When you try to do this, sometimes we fall into a couple of traps. Those traps being comparing the students that you have with other classes or other students, saying, boy, compared to the second period, boy, this class is so challenging, you guys should be more like the fourth period class. No, don't compare them to other people. Don't compare them to other classes. Work with who you have. Avoiding competition is a good thing. With competition, there's always a loser. And in life, we want our students to understand how to work together, how to be excited about someone else's good. So whenever you can set up a situation where we're working together and we all celebrate successes, that's very good. And then of course you want to avoid giving up. And you will be tempted to do this, whether to give up on a certain class period, to give up on a certain student, because it just seems that you're at the end and you've tried everything you know how to do and you can't break through. And I just really encourage you, that's when, as a believer, as a Christian teacher, in whatever situation you're in, to be praying for that student, to be praying for that situation, and every day seeking God for the wisdom that you need, and the perseverance to not give up. Because those are the students who other people have given up on. And if they see that you won't give up, that you're going to continue to be there, that you are going to continue to reach out for them, then you just might be that teacher that breaks through and becomes the one that they remember the most. So this has been just the first key of creating a classroom management, creating a positive environment in many different ways. But it's the most important one, and it took us the most time, 3 videos to do. The others should take less, but these are very, very important things for you to do as you think about the type of classroom that you will create.